Chelsea climbed to second place with goals from Pedro Neto and Enzo Fernández sealing all 3 points. Scott Parker set Burnley up in a 4-3-3, while Enzo Maresca went with his familiar 4-2-3-1, this time leaving Moises Caicedo on the bench. Let's dive into the tactical analysis of the game. When Burnley were in possession, they tried to build from the back using a very clear structure. Their fullbacks, Walker and Quilinci Hartman, drifted wide, while Martin Dubravka stepped forward to join the defensive line. This transformed their back two into a back three, effectively giving Burnley an extra center back. The idea behind this was simple. If Chelsea pressed man-to-man, they would have to commit many players across the pitch, stretching their shape and exposing the back line. And from there, Dubravka could simply launch long balls into the forwards to exploit the space behind Chelsea's defense. But if Chelsea stayed compact and didn't press aggressively, only engaging the center backs, Burnley would have two free men in the wide areas. Their fullbacks would be open to receive and progress the ball up the flanks. Chelsea responded with a blend of both approaches. Reece James and Cucurella pushed slightly higher, not to press Burnley's fullbacks directly, but to position themselves close enough to react. Meanwhile, Chelsea's front four, Pedro Neto, Delap, João Pedro, and Gittins, focused on pressing the center and blocking Burnley's midfield access. Their goal was to stop Burnley's midfield three, Florentino, Josh Cullen, and Ugochukwu, from getting on the ball at all. This meant Chelsea deliberately left the wide areas more open. It might look like a pressing mistake, but it was actually a calculated risk. Here's how it worked. When the ball eventually reached a fullback, Chelsea's corresponding fullback would jump quickly to press. At the same time, Chelsea's entire press collapsed inward, blocking all central passing options and using the touchline as an extra defender. In the example you see here, both Walker and Hartman are wide and initially unmarked. Delap presses Axel Tuanzebe, while João Pedro closes down Josh Cullen, denying him time. Enzo presses Florentino, and Gittins blocks the lane into Ugochukwu. This forces Burnley to keep circulating the ball. When Maxime Esteva receives the ball, Pedro Neto quickly closes him down. Delap angles his run to block the return pass. Esteva is left with only one option, playing wide to Hartman. But look at Reece James' positioning. He's already high, and the moment Hartman receives the ball, James explodes forward, giving him no time to settle and forcing a turnover. This sustained Chelsea press eventually forced Burnley to abandon their build-up and go long, launching balls forward to kickstart attacks. But this approach was largely unsuccessful as Chelsea dealt comfortably with every aerial ball, winning their duels and immediately regaining control of possession. When Chelsea were in possession, their structure shifted into a very fluid and intentional build-up shape. Both fullbacks stayed deeper at first to offer stability, but the key movements came from Cucurella and Enzo Fernández. Cucurella regularly stepped into the left half space, positioning himself almost like an interior midfielder, while Enzo mirrored this on the opposite side by drifting into the right half space. These movements created natural triangles around the ball and allowed Chelsea to outnumber Burnley's first line of pressure. With Cucurella and Enzo stepping inside, Chelsea formed an attacking line of five behind Delap. Gittins stayed wide on the left, Pedro Neto held the width on the right, João Pedro roamed between the lines as the central creator, and Delap positioned himself on the shoulder of the last defender. Behind them, André Santos operated as the lone pivot, responsible for connecting the build-up and recycling possession whenever Burnley tried to close gaps. Chelsea's intention in this shape was very clear. By occupying both half spaces and stretching the pitch horizontally, they forced Burnley's back line to defend wider than they were comfortable. Once the defense stretched even slightly, pockets of space would begin to appear between the center backs and fullbacks, or between the lines. These were the zones Chelsea wanted Cucurella, Enzo, and João Pedro to receive in. Because once they found a free man inside, Burnley's entire defensive shape could be destabilized, Another layer to Chelsea's plan came from their wingers. If Burnley kept a compact shape and refused to stretch, Chelsea's wide players would have the freedom to receive the ball in isolated 1-versus-1 situations. Gittins and Pedro Neto both have the pace and dribbling quality to beat their fullback, so Chelsea were happy to lure Burnley inside, then switch quickly to the wings where a direct confrontation favored them. Because Chelsea's shape continually shifted, Burnley were forced to react. And to counter this, Scott Parker instructed his midfield to apply a strict man-to-man scheme. It was unusual, but it reflected Burnley's desire to stop Chelsea's interior progress at all costs. Ugochukwu was assigned to Cucurella, following him even when Cucurella moved unusually high or drifted centrally. Josh Cullen was responsible for tracking João Pedro, preventing him from turning or receiving comfortably between the lines. Florentino pressed Enzo tightly, often stepping higher than usual to make sure Enzo never had the freedom to dictate play. This meant that whenever Chelsea's midfielders rotated or interchanged positions, Burnley's midfielders were dragged with them. At times, this left Burnley's structure stretched or unbalanced, but the intention was to eliminate Chelsea's passes through the middle. Burnley essentially accepted that they might lose their compact shape, as long as Chelsea couldn't penetrate centrally. To counter Burnley's man-to-man press, Chelsea relied heavily on intelligent rotations and positional manipulation. João Pedro, in particular, played a key role in disrupting Burnley's structure. He frequently dropped deeper into midfield, deliberately carrying his marker with him. This simple movement created a clear vertical passing lane into Delap, who now had space to receive because the midfielder responsible for blocking that passing route had been dragged out of position. The same principle applied to Enzo and Cucurella. Both of them constantly drifted into different zones, sometimes moving closer to Santos, sometimes pushing higher into the half spaces, and sometimes pulling wide. Every movement had a purpose, to force their assigned Burnley marker to follow them. And because Burnley were committed to tight man-to-man coverage, these movements pulled their midfielders away from the central areas they were supposed to protect. Each time a Chelsea player rotated, a Burnley midfielder had to leave his zone, which made Burnley's defensive block stretched, uneven, and easier to break. João Pedro, dropping deep, created a direct line to Delap. Enzo drifting wide dragged Florentino out of the middle, opening passing pockets. Cucurella stepping inside pulled Ugochukwu away from the flank, creating space for Gittins to isolate his man. These combined rotations achieved two things for Chelsea. First, they dragged Burnley's pressing players into uncomfortable positions where they no longer defended the dangerous spaces, and second, they opened up clean central and diagonal passing lanes into Delap, Gittins, or Pedro Neto. In moments when all three, João Pedro, Enzo, and Cucurella, rotated simultaneously, Burnley's midfield became completely disorganized, allowing Chelsea to progress the ball with ease and enter the final third in controlled, dangerous situations. In the end, Chelsea's control of the game came down to their superior structure, intelligence in possession, and the way they manipulated Burnley's man-to-man press. Their rotations, fluid movement, and quick passing consistently created overloads and open spaces, allowing them to dominate the match and secure a deserved 2-0 win. And now, the focus shifts to Europe. Chelsea will face Barcelona on Tuesday at Stamford Bridge. In a crucial Champions League fixture, a completely different kind of challenge, but one they'll enter with confidence after this strong performance. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more tactical breakdowns. See you in the next one.